Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip. My name is Julian, and today we're going to be talking about the waiver wire players that you should add for Week 14 of the fantasy hockey schedule. Guys, Week 14 is the first week of the playoffs for the vast majority of people, and so you got to be prepared. You got to make the right ads and choose the right people so you can win your fantasy hockey championship and get yourself into the semifinals. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I would really appreciate all of your support, and follow me on Twitter. Now, without further ado, guys, let's jump into a look at the schedule for next week. And next week, there are a few teams that only play a couple of games. Those teams are Anaheim, Colorado, Edmonton, St. Louis, and Washington. All of those teams only play 2 games due to some postponed games for some teams. This is why adding players from those teams is probably not the best idea, just because you're not going to get the maximum out of them. You may as well grab a player from a team that's going to play a lot more games, and you're going to get a lot more out of them. Now, there are a few teams that I really like their schedule next week. The first being the Boston Bruins, who play the Buffalo Sabres 3 out of their 4 games next week. The next being the Dallas Stars, who plays Detroit 4 times next week. The next one being the Pittsburgh Penguins, who plays the New Jersey Devils 3 times next week. And the last one is the Vegas Golden Knights, and although they only play 3 games, they got 2 San Jose games and an Anaheim game. Off nights this coming week aren't too important. There's only one really big off night, and that is Sunday night, where only 4 games are being played, so only 8 teams are playing. So on Saturday, you might as well look ahead. If you need that extra pointage, you're going to go ahead and add someone for Sunday to help you secure the week. Jumping into some forward options to add to your team now. First on the list, guys, is Victor Arvidsson, Nashville Predators, 46% owned. And he's been playing top line, top power play, and has been excelling as of late. He's doing very well. Nashville's got 3 games versus the Chicago Blackhawks next week, so not too bad of a matchup either. Next is Jason Robertson, Dallas Stars, 44% owned. And I still can't understand how this guy's under 50% owned. On top of this, he's got 4 games against the Detroit Red Wings this week. You're going to want to add him now because he's going to be an absolute firecracker this first week of the playoffs. Next is Phil Kessel, Arizona Coyotes, 42% owned, and he's still pretty hot right now. He's doing very, very well. As long as Phil Kessel is hot, he's a guy who you can definitely have on your team. I would have him for the Monday and Wednesday games against Minnesota, and then if you need some extra points, you could drop him because Arizona only plays again on Saturday, and that's the only game they play for the rest of the week. So if you do need some extra points, you could drop Kessel on Wednesday and grab someone who has 2 or 3 games coming up. Next is Jared McCann, Pittsburgh Penguins, 41% owned, and he's still doing very, very well on Pittsburgh's second line. He's now playing with Jeff Carter. It won't last for too much longer, though, because Malkin should be back relatively soon. But McCann should continue to play on that second line, which gives him a decent amount of value. And until Malkin comes back, he's got top power play duties. Also, like I said before, Pittsburgh's got 3 New Jersey games, so expect him to produce. Next is Craig Smith, Boston Bruins, 41% owned. He's playing on the second line with Krejci and Taylor Hall. He's doing very, very well. He's on a crazy point streak right now. As long as he stays hot, guys, he's got 3 Buffalo games next week. I really don't mind adding Craig Smith for the run next week. Next is Jack Hughes, New Jersey Devils, 38% owned, and I'm less high on him than I was last week, but he still makes for a decent addition to a team because he's still getting top line time, top power play time. Yeah, there's 3 out of the 4 games are against the Pittsburgh Penguins, but he should still be able to put up some points if you really, really need, and a lot of the other guys that I'm going to list are already taken. Next is Sam Reinhart, Buffalo Sabres, 38% owned, and believe it or not, he's actually lighting it up right now. He's got 6 points in his last 9 games for Buffalo, and he's centering the top line, and he's also on that top power play. So the opportunity is definitely there for Sam Reinhart. His plus-minus might not end up being the best in the world, but if you just need some points, well, Reinhart should be able to put some up for you. Next is Jesper Bratt, New Jersey Devils, 23% owned. He's got 7 points in his last 6 games for New Jersey. He is injured right now, so make sure to check if he's going to be ready for next week before you add him to your team. Just maybe don't add him right away. Just make sure he will be ready. But if he is ready, the dude just keeps producing night after night. He's been insanely consistent. And if you need a guy that's going to give you some consistent points, well, Bratt's actually been doing that. Next is Chandler Stevenson in Vegas Golden Knights, 23% owned, and I really like him. He's top line and top power play with Stone and Pacioretty. It can't get much better than that. He's not that great of a player, but with that deployment, it's pretty hard to not do well. On top of that, he's got 2 San Jose games and an Anaheim game next week. I'm game for Stevenson. Next is Kirby Dach, Chicago Blackhawks 20% owned. He's on the second line with DeBrincat and Strome. He's also on the top power play with those two guys along with Patrick Kane. So I really like adding Kirby Dach for this week. Only thing to be wary of, they got 3 Nashville games and Saros has been pretty hard to beat, but they should still be able to put up a few points. Next is Dennis Gurianov, Dallas Stars, 16% owned. Second line with Jamie Benn, second power play as well. But Dallas has 4 games next week against the Detroit Red Wings. Gurianov should be able to put up some points for you. So in deep leagues, I really like this play. Next is Alex Wenberg, Florida Panthers, 8% owned. And I like him because he's playing on line with Vetrano and Hornquist. And he's also on that top power play now that Ekblad is injured. That gives him some really nice value, especially for Monday and Tuesday when they play back-to-back games against the Columbus Blue Jackets. He should be able to put up some points. I also like Gusev in really, really deep leagues because he's going to be playing on that top line with Barkov. Next is Adam Ernie, Detroit Red Wings, 6% owned, and I don't really understand his production because he's on the 4th line and he's on the top power play, but most of his points lately have come at even strength. That being said, the dude's on an 8-game point streak, and as long as he keeps putting up points, why not grab him for a streamer? Dallas isn't that hard of an opponent to score against. Next is my must-add of the video, guys, and that's Colin Blackwell, New York Rangers, 5% owned. And I really hope you guys are following me on Twitter because a few days ago, I tweeted, hey, I really like Blackwell as a pickup right now. The dude's hot. He's playing on a good line. He's going to put up some points. Well, guess what? On Thursday night, Blackwell, he went off for 3 assists. Guys, follow me on Twitter if you haven't. And if Blackwell is still available in your league, well, the Rangers get 2 Philly games and 1 Buffalo game next week. I like Blackwell's odds of producing. Next is Casey Mittelstadt, Buffalo Sabres, 5% owned. He's got 8 points over his last 9 games. This is a guy who has never been able to produce consistently in the NHL. Well, since the coaching change, he's actually done really, really well in Buffalo. And as long as he stays hot, he's a guy that's definitely worth an add in deeper leagues. Buffalo's got 4 games this coming week, so it doesn't hurt. Mittelstadt is also getting top power play time, so you don't have to worry too much about that production being unsustainable. Now jumping into some defensemen, guys. First on the list is Jacob Trouba, New York Rangers, 49% owned. And don't look now, but he's actually insanely hot. He's been shooting a crazy amount. He's been blocking shots. He's getting lots of ice time, and he's got 3 points in his last 6 games, so he's even producing offensively. Now, he's not my favorite option in the world because he doesn't get top power play time, but he's hot right now, and the Rangers' schedule next week is not too bad. Next is Ryan Ellis, Nashville Predators, 47% owned. This is a guy who's usually owned at about 70+%. The only reason he's not is because he was injured and was going to miss almost a lot of the rest of the season. He's finally back from injury. He has a point in 4 games, which isn't amazing, but he is getting a good amount of power play time. And he's a very good offensive defenseman, guys. So if he's available, you should probably scoop him up. Next is Jared Spurgeon, Minnesota Wild, 42% owned, and I still can't explain how this guy is not over 50% owned because he's getting top power play time, he's producing, he's looking good, and Minnesota's got a pretty nice schedule next week, 4 games against 4 pretty easy teams to beat. Next is Philip Hronek, Detroit Red Wings, 27% owned, and like I said before, they got 4 games against the Dallas Stars, and they're not the hardest team in the world to score goals against. Let's not kid ourselves. Hronek's got top power play time with Dylan Larkin, and he's a very, very good player. So if you're desperate, you need a defenseman that's going to get power play time, can potentially put up a good amount of points, Hronek's your guy. Worst case, he'll get some okay peripherals and won't put up any points. Next is Alex Goligoski, Arizona Coyotes, 26% owned. And how is he still 26% owned only? The dude's got 9 points in his last 10 games. He's getting top power play time. He's balling out. So if he's available in your league, grab him because he's going to continue to produce in your fantasy playoffs. Next is Duncan Keith, Chicago Blackhawks, 20% owned. And with Boquist out, we all expected Keith to jump onto that top power play. Looks like Chicago's actually running a top power play of 5 forwards right now, but he does end up on it a decent amount of the time. So he's not the best pickup in the world, but he is getting some top power play time. Next is Ty Smith, New Jersey Devils, 19% owned, and I don't like him at all. For categories leagues, he doesn't do a whole lot. But in points leagues, he's still getting that top power play time, so he could put up a decent amount of points this week, and he's got 4 games. Next is another must-add of the video, and that's Mike Riley, Boston Bruins, 11% owned. And I actually featured him on last week's video when he was still on Ottawa. He was producing, and now that he's on Boston, he's on their top power play with Brad Marchand, Pasternak, Bergeron, and Grzelcyk is injured. So as long as Grzelcyk remains injured, and we don't know at all what his injury is right now, Mike Riley is going to continue to man that top power play, which makes him a lot more valuable than 11% owned. Next is Shane Gostisbehere, Philadelphia Flyers, 10% owned. He's got 4 points in his last 6 games. He's a terrible defensive defenseman, but he's pretty good offensively. He continues to get power play time every single Philadelphia Flyers game, and as long as he does, he's worth an add in a lot of deep leagues. Keep in mind, though, the Flyers don't play until Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. So if you guys want to wait until Thursday to pick up Gostisbehere, you can stream someone in the meantime until then. Next is Vince Dunn, St. Louis Blues, 9% owned. And I really liked him going into the week because he had 3 Colorado games, and Colorado's probably going to have Dubnyk in net. So I kind of liked Vince Dunn. He's been very productive lately. He's getting power play time. But then they canceled the Colorado game on Tuesday. So unless they reschedule another game for St. Louis this week, St. Louis only plays twice. So if you want to, you can grab Vince Dunn on Thursday since they don't play until then. And then you'll also get a game from him on Saturday. So that's a possibility, but I probably wouldn't grab him like right now. And last but not least, guys, are 2 Pittsburgh Penguins defensemen, Mike Matheson and Brian Dumoulin. They're both very, very hot right now. And although they're not really known for their offense, they're producing right now, and they're both putting up some decent peripherals as well. Next, Ilya Sorokin, New York Islanders, 50% owned, and he should get 2 out of the Islanders' 3 games next week. Sorry if you have Varlamov, but the way that they're dividing the games, they're splitting evenly. You're starting one game. If that ends up being the case, Sorokin will get 2 out of the 3 Islander games, and Varlamov will only get 1. Next is Devin Dubnyk, Colorado Avalanche, 42% owned, and don't pick him up until Thursday because the Avs don't play until then, if they do end up even playing on Thursday because of all the COVID stuff. I don't love Dubnyk, but if you're really, really desperate for a goalie who's going to get the start on Thursday, probably will be Dubnyk. But again, don't pick him up until then because he's not going to play until then. Next is Jake Allen, Montreal Canadiens, 38% owned. And as of this recording, Carey Price has not returned to the Montreal crease. So as long as Carey Price remains out, Jake Allen will get basically every single start. Next is Jake Ottinger, Dallas Stars, 28% owned. And it's really, really, really hard to predict which goalie Dallas is going to be starting. But I think that Ottinger should get at least 2 out of Dallas's 4 games next week. He should get at least 1. There's a back-to-back. But even then, Dallas has been starting the same goalie half the time back-to-back. So it's really hard to predict. But realistically, Ottinger should get a couple of Dallas's games. He's not my favorite option just in case they decide to start Khudobin in all 4 games. But if you're really desperate for a goalie and you need someone who should get a couple of games, Ottinger should, and they'll both be against Detroit. Next is Cal Peterson, Los Angeles Kings, 25% owned. And I don't absolutely love Peterson because the Kings aren't that great of a team. He's a very good goalie, but he should start 2 out of the Kings' 3 games next week if you really need a goalie. Next, Aiden Hill, Arizona Coyotes, 19% owned, and I'm less high on him now that Ronta is back, but Ronta really sucked in his first start, so it could still be Hill seeing the majority of the starts since Kemper is nowhere close to returning. It is a bit of a gamble to have Hill on your team just because he may not get all the starts, but he should still get at least half of the Arizona starts next week. Next are Jonathan Bernier and Thomas Greiss, Detroit Red Wings, 9% and 6% owned, and they should split the starts next week, so they should each get 2 starts against the Dallas Stars, which isn't terrible, but it's not my favorite either. If you really need a couple of starts, you can grab one of those 2 guys, but there are better options. I actually prefer Tokarski next week. Next is Anthony Stolarz, Anaheim Ducks, 6% owned, and has he stolen the crease in Anaheim? Who knows? I don't absolutely love him, though, because the Ducks, like I mentioned earlier in the video, only have 2 games next week. And those games are on Tuesday and Saturday, so they're pretty spaced apart. You could grab him just for the Tuesday game if you need a goalie on Tuesday, but then I would probably drop him because he's not worth holding on to until Saturday. You can stream someone who's going to get a few games in between those days. And last but not least, guys, is Dustin Tokarski, Buffalo Sabres, 1% owned. And personally, I actually really like this pickup because Ullmark is out week to week. Carter Hutton has just started skating, so he won't be back next week. So Tokarski should get 3 or 4 out of 4 Buffalo games next week. Buffalo gets pelted with shots every single game. So in a league where you count saves, well, Dustin Tokarski is actually going to do pretty well, even if he doesn't necessarily get the win. Personally, I'm going to be picking up Tokarski to fill in for Grubauer on Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, you've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I really appreciate it. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, ask me a fantasy hockey related question. I'll be happy to answer you. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.